Hello Airsoft friends, and welcome to this video today, where today we are going to be tuning our Maxx trigger on our Mod 1. Yes, we put some upgrades into our KWA-QRF Mod 1, including a Gate Titan MOSFET and the Maxx trigger. Yes, rather lovely stuff. Now this is a combo which I really like, just because it gives you like a lot of more user functionality and allows you to tune it, so when you pull the trigger you get like a nice kind of like trigger response feeling that you want, and also you just kind of get like user niceness. I don't know how to explain it really. What we're doing today doesn't really have a huge impact on how the gun actually performs. It does make the trigger response feel a bit more, because we're going to be tuning exactly when the trigger actually does fire the shot, if that makes sense. But it's also very much in the ergonomic point of view as well. Like, I want my trigger to be set up in a way where there's not a lot of trigger movement, but there's enough that makes me feel like I've pulled the trigger. I don't really like hair triggers because it feels like, you know, you're not really kind of doing anything, you're just putting a bit of pressure on the trigger. But I can understand why people would like those out in the field. So we do have the Gate Titan in there now, and that's one of the things which already can really improve the trigger response, because you can actually tune when the shot will go off within the actual software itself. And to show you what I mean by that, I've got the Gate Titan software set up on my computer right now. You can see that the trigger actually at the minute covers this first section, so the trigger isn't going to fire at the moment. But when it gets to here, that sensor gets covered here, which you can see between this, and there's no firing because I've got the fire to be set on this one. And if I continue pulling the trigger, it then gets to that sensor there. I guess if I just like pull the trigger all the way, you'll see how all the different light sensors pick up the trigger movement, and this is what we can do to actually tune the trigger response already. Now, if we didn't have the Maxx trigger in here, and this is just the options that we had, I would select to have the trigger be in this one here, and what that means now is when I pull the trigger a little bit, it will then fire on this first connection point here. I could select it if I wanted to be right at the end here, and that means the trigger needs to have all of this movement before the shot goes off. But that's a lot of movement and makes the trigger feel quite squishy. That's something which I'm actually trying to not do. I want to stop that squidgy feeling. So we're not actually going to play around too much with the trigger settings at this point in time. The reason being, we've got a load of adjustments to do to the Maxx trigger itself now before we get into the stages and doing things like that. With the Maxx trigger, there's two grub screws in there. The first one of them affects the starting position of the trigger, which is that grub screw just here like that, and the second grub screw affects the overall travel of the trigger, which is just about in there, just like so. So what we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to adjust the start point of the trigger. Now, when I change this grub screw, essentially what I'm going to try and do is, I want to make it so the trigger starting position is roughly about here. So when I pull it that little bit, it will just go into that fire position straight away. Now, the reason why I want it to be on the last fire position and not on one of the earlier ones is because of the end travel of the trigger. I don't want there to be a lot of movement in the trigger, so if I was to kind of like have the trigger set up for one of the front sensors, that grub screw is going to have to come out so very far. There may not be enough travel in there. And that's something which I found with my Crytac rifle when I was setting up the trigger on there. And also, as a bit of a personal preference, I kind of like the trigger to be a bit further back, so then it's easier for me to, you know, well, for me anyway, I find it a little bit easier to pull the trigger if it has got that extra angling. So let's just get in there and start adjusting this trigger. So I'm gonna come in here just like so, put my bit in. It is a little bit fiddly, but once we get in the grub screw, it should be a bit easier. So just like this, I'm now making small changes, and we should see in the software that the trigger stages start to light up as the trigger gets more angled, just like so. We're getting it closer to where we want the trigger to be, and this is pretty much where we're looking at for it to be right about now. And now I'm just going to give the trigger a bit of a test to see how that feels like in terms of, you know, how much movement I've got before the fire option gets lit up in the software. And you know what? It's pretty close to where I want it to be. I'm going to tighten the grub screw up just that tiny little bit more. Yeah, that is right on point of where I want it to be. So now I've got that set up where I want it to be. I now need to set up the overall travel of the trigger. So I need to come into the other grub screw, which is located just here on the trigger, and tighten that up a little bit. And what that does is the grub screw goes out and through and then puts a stopper on how far the trigger can actually move backwards. Now I'm gonna undo that a little bit, and as you see, the trigger did move back, and I've got that little bit of movement there. It's actually feels quite nice. I'm gonna take it off just a little bit more, give myself just that little bit extra movement, and you know what, that feels really quite nice. Let me feel my Crytac in relation to that. and that feels very, very similar. Perfect. So I'm happy with that. What I found when putting my Crytac in though is when I'm shooting the rifle, because there's a lot of vibrations, it actually causes the grub screws to move, twist, and come out of the positions that I've currently got them set up as. So I'm going to use some thread lock on them to make sure that they stay in place. Now, if you don't have thread lock, you can always use super glue as well. And to be honest with you, I think I'm actually going to go for the super glue option in this setup as well, just because I want to just show you that you don't really need to have all the fancy extra little bits. You can just use your standard at-home things as well. Now, this bit is a little bit nerving because you need to make sure you get everything set up correctly, and also you do it quickly before the super glue sets. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to do one grub screw at a time, and I'm going to keep my software up on the screen, so when I adjust the travel of the first grub screw, I can make sure that I've got the same trigger position as I have now, because I know it's exactly where I want it to be. And then once I've done the first position, I can then come back and then adjust the travel of the second grub screw too. So why don't we just go and do that now? You'll see as I remove it, the stage on the trigger will change, and that is perfectly fine. That's what we expect to happen. Perfect. There we go. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to leave the grub screw sticking out the trigger a little bit, just like so. I'm then going to come to my super glue, and I'm going to put a bead of it on the end of my screwdriver. I'm then going to wipe that bead onto the grub screw, just like so, and then I'm going to quickly start adjusting it and make sure that I get the trigger preference set up just as I had it before. Right, so here we go. Putting some of the glue onto my screwdriver, just like that, and then coming in, putting the bead onto the grub screw, just like so. There we go. That is looking good. I'm going to tighten it up just a tiny little bit more. That is absolutely perfect. Lovely. I am loving it. There we go. Yes, I am super happy with that. That is perfect. Now I'm going to give it just a moment for that glue to settle itself down. The screw's not actually going to really go anywhere, but I always just like to, you know, at least let the surface kind of glue on the grub screw settle so I don't, you know, stick myself to it or any of my tools to it. I have a horrible tendency of doing that. Whenever I'm super gluing something, I always end up with me glued to more of the parts than the parts are actually glued together. Right, there we go. That's had some time to settle. So now we're pretty much going to do the exact same thing, but now for the other grub screw on the trigger. And just like so, undoing it. So I've got some grub screws sticking out just like so. That is perfect. And then I can do the same gluing technique that I did on the other one. So I'm going to come to my little flathead screwdriver, get another bead onto it just like so, and then attach that bead, oh my days, to the grub screw. There we go, just like that. And again, just testing the trigger every now and again to make sure we've got the travel that we want. And that looks really nice. I'm super happy with that. That travel is absolutely perfect. So that's both grub screws adjusted. We got the trigger set up exactly how we want it to be. Before I go do some test fires with it now, I'm just going to let it to set, give it that time for the glue to settle. If I start shooting it now, there is a chance that the grub screws are going to twist out a little bit and then set in the position that I don't want them to be. I want that glue to be properly cured before I start putting some rounds through this thing. That's the great thing about using the USB link that comes with the gate tighten MOSFET. You don't have to worry about any vibrations or anything changing your positions or your settings. You can literally see everything on the screen happen, how it's, you know, how the gun's actually going to behave. So yeah, that is really, really good. Trigger unit aside, I'm actually using just the basic gate tighten in this build, whereas in my Crytac, I've actually got the expert one. I bought the advanced and then upgraded to the expert after I was kind of like using it. And I did that because I like to have all the settings available to me. I want to be able to kind of like have access to everything that's changeable and then, you know, play around with things as I like. But the thing that I noticed or realized from the Crytac is that the only thing that I really actually want to use on this is the adaptive braking that comes with the basic, and also the trigger setup, which as you can see comes with the basic too. So for you, I'd actually just recommend to get the basic, because for me that's everything in there that I really need or find that I kind of go into the Rift to change when I'm getting my gun set up. I 100% recommend getting the USB link though. It doesn't come with the basic, it does come with the advanced version, so it may be worth, if this is your first Titan, buy the advanced out of the back, get the USB link, get the MOSFET, and then if you buy any future Gate Titans, just get the basic ones and they'll be perfectly fine for you. Speaking of the Titans, if you want to pick up one for yourself and also the same trigger that I'm using in these builds, you can find them on the Project Airsoft website. They genuinely make such a big difference on your wrists. They make your guns feel snappier. They actually, the Titan itself does make it feel snappier. And the fact that you can just set the trigger up to be absolutely perfect to your own preference, oh my god. It's absolutely wonderful. So yeah, they're both available on the website right now. Okay, here we go. Moment of truth. Let me grab myself a battery and see how, well, make sure that it actually bloody works. And see how the trigger response feels now. Okay, there we go. Quickly over there. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, I'm I'm so down for that. That's, it's so much better. It's so much better. Oh my days, I absolutely love it. That is so good. Like, there's a few different upgrades that I would always recommend in any kind of build. I would say Prometheus Purple Hot Rubber. Again, those are available on the Project Airsoft website right now too. I use those in all of my AEGs. Gate Titan MOSFET and the Maxx Trigger. They are the three things that in any AEG just make it so much better. And if your rifle is compatible, then I'd also highly recommend the Maxx Hop Unit 2. Those are also available on the website now. Sadly, it is not compatible with the Mod1, but I do have one of those in my Crytek M4 there, and also in my Ares AM0072, because those hop units are just sick. And in both of those, they've got the built-in tracer units as well. So yeah, there we go. That is how you finally tune a Maxx trigger to your preferences. Thank you so much for watching this video. It was sponsored by Project Airsoft, as I've mentioned throughout. Like I said, we have got those new fanciful items on the website now, so if you need any upgrade hop rubbers so you can lift heavier weight BBs like 2.8s and above, or if you just want to like give your rifle the little bit of an upgrade it deserves, you can get the Maxx Hop units, the Gate Titan MOSFETs, and also the Maxx triggers on there too. Huge shout out to all my patrons for supporting the channel month on month. You genuinely do make such a big difference, and yeah, I love each and every one of you. I want to do more giveaways for you because I just feel so thankful for everything that you do. So yeah, keep an eye out for those. Remember, this month we're giving away a KJ Works Glock green gas pistol, so if you want to be in with a chance of getting that, join the Patreon in the link below and get in the royalty or the legend tier. And if you're looking for some airsoft friends, the StayFreshShoe Airsoft community Discord server has over 600 people in there. Loads and loads of fun, friendly faces, knowledgeable faces too. So if you have some questions or anything like that, drop them into the Discord and yeah, enjoy making some airsoft friends. And until next time, thank you very much for watching. Remember to call your hits, and I'll see you in the next one. Don't know what my arms are doing.